Growing up, I wasn't one of those kids who had a lot of friends. I had kids I went fishing with or kids I played sports with, but we were never really good friends. It wasn't until I got to university that I developed a real solid friendship. Grant and I were both students, me in the mechanical and civil engineering departments and Grant in the geology department. We met, not through our studies, but through rugby. We both played for the high school team, him as a huge lock and me as a flanker. Our friendship started during a game that turned into a real fight. It started when an opposing defender took a swing at Grant, and I grabbed him, pulled him away from Grant, and lightly chapped him on the chin for bothering him. That's when the fight started. Everyone was out in force, young and old, fists were flying, bodies were everywhere. After the game, Grant came over, threw his monstrous arm over my shoulder, and thanked me for sticking up for him. Later in the clubhouse, we pounced on each other and completely wrote ourselves off. It was the beginning of a very close friendship that lasted a long time. After graduation, I took the easy way out, taking a job in Wellington with the Ministry of Works as a road and bridge engineer. I say it was easy because it meant I would become a civil servant with all the benefits that entailed. Grant, on the other hand, decided to get a degree and go abroad, eventually ending up in South Africa, where he made a real fortune mining diamonds. And I, as a civil servant, slowly worked my way up the ladder. Grant and I were complete opposites. He was a dynamic, forward-thinking man, and I was a quiet and calm worker retiring. I met the love of my life, Ashley Godden, at the Rugby Club Awards dinner. The club had its own women's netball team, and we would sometimes join her at events such as prize giving. Ashley, who had recently moved to Wellington to take up a research position at DSIR, joined the netball team to make friends. I spotted her from across the room and was drawn to her like the proverbial moth to a flame. She was there with a bunch of her friends having a great time. I managed to sneak in and we ended up dancing. It was the beginning of a very brief courtship. Ashley was an incredibly outgoing and friendly person. They say opposites attract. Well, in a nutshell, we were alike. 12 months later, we got married and started our lives together. It was a typical marriage. We both worked long, tedious hours trying to raise money for our first home. We chose a house in one of Wellington's outer seaside suburbs, Lyall Bay, where our children Sylvia and Clive were born. We had barely moved in when Grant suddenly returned from South Africa, bringing with him his gorgeous bride Saskia. He had made a fortune and decided to return to NZ and put his wealth to good use. They stayed with us while they looked for a suitable house. Luckily, they quickly found a suitable home in neighboring Island Bay. Saskia and Ashley became fast friends and were inseparable. Grant bought a small engineering business specializing in earth-moving equipment repair. Grant, being Grant, turned this fledgling business into a veritable gold mine. Saskia became pregnant with their first and only child. As the kids got older and wanted independence, we decided to build an addition to the house as it was a bit cramped. When Grant found out about it, he rushed to help, figuring I needed help. We spent hours building that extension. Every weekend and late evenings after work, we worked long and hard, although always accompanied by a few beers to finish the job. I learned a lot from him. It was a real team effort that strengthened an already strong friendship. I learned a lot about Grant. He definitely liked being the boss. It was in his nature, and I didn't mind. He made the right decisions. I also learned that we were a good team, which I suppose shouldn't have surprised me. Around the same time, Saskia found a job selling real estate, and Grant was quickly losing interest in his business. He had done his best to turn around the failing business, but now that he was successful, he was bored with it. The house sat on the market for less than a month before it was sold for a whopping profit. I'd be lying if I didn't say I was a little jealous. Well, envious anyway. He worked hard for it and deserved it. He decided he needed a change and went back to mining. He found a contract job in Australia, which didn't make Saskia happy at all. She was happy and didn't want him to leave. She ended up spending a lot of time at our house crying on Ashley's shoulder. He'd been gone for months, and Saskia's growing frustration with the state of affairs meant that if he wanted to save his marriage, he had to come home. He didn't just come home, he came back with a plan. He came back with a burning desire to become a grape grower. Saskia was stunned, but it didn't take him long to convince her to accept the offer. They put their house on the market, and since Saskia was game, it sold quickly, and they left. It came as a surprise to him when he moved his family to Otago. The region had no history of growing grapes. If he had said Marlborough, I would have thought it made sense. But Central Otago? But you can't argue with Grant if he had an idea in his head and brought in a piece of land he hadn't seen. They left with plans to plant the first grapes in Central Otago. With his thoughts and plan, that is when he started to realize it. He was going to conquer the world and become a world-class grape grower. This became his dream, and as in everything he did, he threw himself into it with great enthusiasm. He was bold, fearless. It was something new for the region. It wasn't a well-known wine region, but he had a dream and nothing could stand in his way. With his set goal and his can-do attitude of never giving up, it was always a sure thing. What came as a shock to me, though, was the sneaky phone call asking if I could take time off work to come and help him with the construction. I chuckled to myself. He may have had a plan, but he still needed help, and his ego was hurt by having to ask for help. With a quick word with Ashley, we got the kids together for a 6-week Christmas vacation so I could help him design and build a house. It was a fun 6 weeks. The kids got along great with Grant and Saskia. They were sort of unofficial godparents. It was hard work. We labored hard again and started building the house, drawing up the plans and laying the foundation. In the evenings, as soon as the light disappeared, we planted grapes. My main goal was to create a wind-assisted irrigation system. It was a new approach to solving a real problem. Over the next year, I returned several times to help with the construction. Eventually, he got exactly what he wanted: a huge ramshackle house built from local logs and stone. It was a huge grand monstrosity that stood out even in this neighborhood, and the entrance was taken straight from House and Garden magazine. Big, powerful stone columns, monstrously huge doors opening into a wide foyer. You could easily make a Hollywood movie in here. His plan was not only to make the vineyard a success, he wanted it to be a home base where guests could come, taste the wine and stay in style, tour the vineyard, and see how the wine was made. We lost touch for a few years while he focused on building his business and becoming a world-class winemaker. We had kids to raise and Ashley went back to work. Work, kids, and their needs. All of this took up all of our time, so we rarely saw Grant and Saskia for extended periods of time. We came together when our daughter Sylvia enrolled at Lincoln University in Canterbury. God knows why she chose agriculture, but there you go. Clive left the nest next, followed by their son Glenn. Saskia, like a mother hen, began to look after Sylvia. God knows how many hours she spent on the road picking her up from school and ferrying her back and forth so she could spend weekends at their house, and we will be forever grateful to her for getting through that period unscathed. For my 50th birthday, Ashley decided to throw a huge party, and of course Grant and Saskia came to visit. It was kind of a joyous reunion that led to us spending time together and vacationing at each other's houses, even though their house was much more luxurious than ours. Ashley kind of fell in love with it, and it provided for most of our traveling. It wasn't long after that things went downhill. Saskia. Oh, sweet Saskia. She was a wild thing and loved to drive. She had a little Triumph Spitfire that really suited her personality. She was a girl racer. I hated going anywhere with her because she was never happy unless her foot was on the floor. The only thing that bothered me was when she was picking up Sylvie, even though Sylvie assured me she never went fast with her in the car. But it was a hell of a lot different when I was in the car, and she took great pleasure in scaring the hell out of me. In retrospect, it seems inevitable, but that doesn't negate the tragedy. One day, racing down the winding, windy roads of Central Otago, she was involved in a fatal accident. If there was one good thing, it was that she would die quickly. Grant was a mess after the accident. He was wiping his eyes as he told us the news over the phone. We immediately jumped into the airplane and flew down. When we arrived, he was drunk and sobbing heartily. Ashley put her arms around him, comforting him. He poured me a drink and we sat on the deck and drank the hell out of it. Ashley spent the night cleaning up and preparing for the mad rush of people expected tomorrow. When I finally crawled into bed, Ashley was still awake and sobbing quietly. God, what a mess, honey. He's not doing well. You're going to have to be strong tomorrow. You have to pull yourself together. At dawn, Ashley concentrated on cooking and getting ready for the reception. I went to the police station and arranged for the car to be removed and disposed of. Jesus, what a wreck. It was smashed beyond recognition. I found a specialized tow truck that was interested enough to pick it up. Back at the house, Ashley had laid out the food, and there were a steady stream of people flocking to him, wanting to offer Grant condolences and promises of help. He wasn't quite catatonic, but barely functioning. That evening, when everyone left, it was just Grant, his son Glenn, and us. Ashley made dinner, but it was gloomy. We tried to get Grant to open up and talk, but he was lost, completely immersed in his all-consuming grief. This was a side of him we had never seen before, and it was a testament to how much he loved her. He rejected our attempts to talk about what he was going to do and walked away, leaving us to talk. His son was very worried. He was studying architecture at Massey University in Hamilton and was deeply immersed in his studies. He couldn't afford too much free time. The funeral was well attended. Grant certainly made an impact on the local community. He was always a man with a big heart, the kind of guy who would give you the shirt off his back. In the days following the funeral, he became very sullen and gloomy, especially after his son left for university. Ashley and I became worried. This was worse than just grief. It was depression in its worst form. We decided that the best thing would be for him to come back to Wellington and stay with us for a while. It wasn't easy to convince him. It took a lot of effort. But eventually Ashley and her mother Henstyle convinced him that it made sense. So, after arranging for one of the vineyard workers to take him on, Grant flew back to Wellington with us. It was incredibly sad to see him like that. He's always been such a positive guy, and here he is moping around the house while Ashley waits impatiently for him. As much as I loved him, he was driving me crazy. I could see that Ashley wanted to take care of him, but she was tired of it too. We both worked, and after work we would come to the house and find it a mess and nothing done. I tried to talk to him, but it was hard. I didn't want to hurt him. I just wanted him to get his head out of his ass and do something. 2 weeks passed and we were saved. When we got home, we found him packing. It was like the flick of a switch, and to this day I don't know what made him act, but he hugged us both and exclaimed, "Guys, thanks for taking care of me, but I need to get back to work. If I sit here much longer, I'm going to go crazy." Ashley and I danced with joy as we drove him to the airport. Damn, it was great to have our house back. No more mess. And Ashley was especially happy that we didn't have to chase him around. Ashley called and talked to him every night, and he actually looked better. Being back on the vineyard and the mountains of work had made him feel invigorated. The next month came the long weekend, and Ashley offered to fly up to visit him. We both took extra vacation days and flew. The weather was amazing as we drove up to the vineyard. The scenery in this region is amazing, with alpine scenery and clear blue skies that just take your breath away. And this was one of those days. Ash shook her head in bewilderment, as she often did when traveling. Holy moly, honey, it's an amazing sight, isn't it? Grant greeted us with a warm hug, but when we stepped inside, Ashley nearly died. The place was a pigsty. There were dishes piled up in the kitchen, leftovers lying everywhere, and it looked like he hadn't done a single bit of housework since he'd gotten back. He apologized, though, mumbling that he'd been busy in the vineyard. Ashley rolled up her sleeves and got to work. I had no choice but to help. Grant excused himself with the excuse that he had something to do and disappeared. As soon as he was out the door, Ashley threw herself into my arms. Jesus, what the hell? There isn't 1 square inch of space for a bench and the floor is sticky to walk on. I nodded. It's disgusting. How can he live like this? She shrugged. It just doesn't make sense. He's never been like this. I get that he's grieving, but damn, it's just awful. It took the rest of the day to get things in relative order. Grant came back just before dinner and didn't even say thank you, as if nothing had happened. He chatted during dinner, but it was weird that he kept coming back to something he'd told us just a few minutes ago. Ashley and I looked back and forth, wondering what was going on. We left after lunch on Monday and he cried on Ashley's shoulder and hugged me. "I'm going to miss you too," he muttered. Back home, Ashley was more worried than ever. She called him every night, but he was still the same, distant and incoherent. Ashley figured he'd been drinking. Thursday night, I got home a little later than usual and found Ashley sobbing in a way I had never seen before. She looked scared and in deep shock. "Honey, what's wrong?" I immediately thought of the kids. "Are they all right?" She looked at me with eyes full of tears. "It's Grant. He's been diagnosed with a brain tumor." She fell into deeper and deeper fits of despair. "He only has 6 months to live." I plopped down in the chair next to her, and she put her arms around me. "What are we going to do?" she asked. "Honey, there's nothing we can do. He can come back and live with us, and we'll try to look after him." She nodded, her tears flowing. "That's what I said. But you know what a stubborn bastard he can be. He refused. Maybe you can convince him." I called him later and offered to stay with us. "No, sorry, buddy, but that's not going to happen. I need to be here to finish the vineyard. There are important things I have to do." I tried to convince him otherwise, but he wasn't going to budge. We talked some more, but I didn't know what to say. God, what can you say to a man with a death sentence hanging over him? And eventually, I happily handed the phone over to Ashley. Dinner passed in silence. Neither Ashley nor I knew what to say. The next night when Ashley handed me the phone, I waved her off and she continued the conversation with an angry look. After hanging up, she muttered, "Damn it, why didn't you talk to him? He needs you more than ever." "Because I don't know what to say to him." "I think we need to go back downstairs and see if he's okay. We can't just ignore him in his time of need." I nodded. "Yeah, okay, but it's going to be hard work if it's like last time." We hugged each other, comforting each other. It was the strangest feeling. We'd been friends for so long. We had so much in common. But now I couldn't find the words to tell him. Forgiveness didn't fit. When we got to the Grants' house, it was just like last time. The lawns hadn't been mowed, the inside was a shithole, the pile of dirty dishes reached almost to the ceiling. Ashley cried, and when Grant showed up from the farm, everyone hugged. It was easier that way, at least. I shook the dust off the lawnmower and set about getting the lawns and grounds in order. Ashley was up to her elbows in dishwater, and Grant was wandering around looking like everything was fine. He didn't feel the least bit ashamed of the state of the house. That night at dinner, we tried unsuccessfully to persuade him to come home with us, but he would not, and no amount of coercion or argument could change his mind. The next day I went with Grant, and he showed me around the vineyard, noting all the improvements and changes. I was able to talk to his foreman, and it was clear that all the changes were due to him, and he was running the place, and Grant, despite his good intentions, was just getting in the way. The flight home passed in silence, save that Ashley declared, "Honey, he can't be left like that. He can't take care of himself. He could get hurt." "Well, he seems to be doing okay. Unless we can prove he's not in his right mind, there's nothing we can do." "But he's not in his right mind. Honey, he needs help." I didn't understand where this was going. "Honey, this is his life. We just need to be there for him when he needs us." "Bullshit! He needs us now!" she snapped angrily. "I don't understand you. He's your best friend, for goodness sake. He needs you, and we have to find a way to help." She leaned back in her chair and folded her arms across her chest like she did when she was angry. I knew from experience not to say anything. Tuesday night, I came home and found that Ashley had made a huge dinner, and we entertained that night. Wednesday night, it happened again. She was very loving. And it repeated for a few more days, but it was afterward when we hugged that I got a shock. "Rob, I want us to take time off work and go and live with Grant to help him because he's only got a few months left. I've spoken to my manager and they've agreed to give me 6 months off, but I don't have enough seniority, so I'll have to take 1 month of unpaid leave. Stunned and confused, he said, "What? Jesus, Ashley, is that what this was all about? You were just sucking up to me." She smirked slyly. "I shouldn't have done that. Rob is our best friend. And you've seen what he's like. He can't take care of himself, and he has no one to lean on, honey. It's the right thing to do. We have to help." She pressed herself tighter against me. "Come on, honey. You know it's the right thing to do. You have seniority leave, and we can do it. If they don't help, I'm sure he can afford a live-in caregiver. Let me make some inquiries. I'm sure we can work something out." Shaking her head, she kissed my shoulder. "Han, that wouldn't be right, would it? I don't want some stranger taking care of him, not when we could be doing it. What would Saskia say?" "No, Rob. It's our responsibility." "Ash, I can't. We've got too much to do at work. They want to promote me, and if I leave now, I'll be bypassed." "Oh, for goodness sake, we don't need the money. We're talking about our friend." "Honey, he won't expect that from us. He's a tough nut to crack. And when he gets to the stage where he can't take care of himself, we could go under." She shook her head, and it was obvious she was angry. "Damn, you're annoying me. Where did that caring and loving guy I married go? Where did this heartless shit I'm living with come from? I understand that you want to help Ash, but we can't." The next couple days were a little chill, but on the third day it all came back with renewed vigor, and as the weekend approached, I started to run out of steam. On Friday night it all became clear. She said, "Honey, I've decided that if you don't want to come down and help, I'll go myself." "Ash, you can't. I need you here too, you know that." "Bullshit. You're a big boy now. You can take care of yourself. He's dying, for God's sake. He'll be gone for good soon." Realizing I was fighting a losing battle, and somewhat agreeing that this was the right thing to do, I asked, "So what time frame are we talking about? Days or weeks?" She wrapped her arms around my neck and kissed me wetly on the lips. "Well, I don't know how fast he'll start losing control of himself, or how long it will be before he can't stay home, but I'll stay until he has to go to the hospital." "Jesus, Ashley, you know that could take months." She nodded. "I know, honey, but what else can we do?" Leaning back, I whispered, "Shit, Ashley, I don't know how soon you'll be home." "Before the end, I guess." "So you're not even coming home to visit me?" The sad look in her eyes gave me my answer. "Rob, you could come every weekend or maybe every other weekend. You don't have to leave everything to me." In the morning, we made love again before I drove her to the airport. "Call me," I whispered as we hugged one last time. She kissed me lightly. "Sure, silly, every night." With those words, she left. At home, I was confused. As much as I moaned for her, this would be the first time in our married life that we would be separated for a long time. I mowed the lawns and thought about what to make for dinner. At least I could eat whatever I wanted. I cracked open a beer and relaxed in the living room. Later that night, Ashley called, and Grant picked up the phone in tears. "Thanks, buddy. That means so much to me." Ashley came back and whispered, "Rob, he was so happy when he saw me. He instantly brightened up. We did everything right. He's more alive than I've seen him in a long time." What could I say except, "That's good news." The first week the calls were regular, and she begged me to come down for the weekend, but because of work I couldn't do it. I had to work on Saturday. The next week she called every night, but no longer begging me to come and visit. The next week the calls became fewer. They seemed forced. It was like she was afraid to talk to me, and I got the feeling that things were not right. In the fourth week, I decided I had to find out what the hell was going on. I booked a plane ticket for the weekend but didn't say anything. I decided to surprise them. It was a pleasant day in central Otago when I drove to the Grant's house. My only hope was that his condition hadn't deteriorated too much and that Ashley was okay. As I drove up to the house, I was struck by how well it looked. The gardens were tended, the lawns were mowed, everything looked tidy. Ashley was obviously very busy. I walked in, calling out loudly, "Ashley, are you in here?" I saw her come out of the kitchen looking completely stunned. "Rob, what are you doing here?" Stunned by her indifference, I muttered, "Jesus, do I need an excuse to visit my wife?" She hesitantly approached, put her arms around me, and the kiss melted away all my fears. "No, of course not, you sneaky devil. But you should have called. We could have picked you up at the airport and saved on the rental car." Grant walked in from outside. His expression surprised me. He didn't look all that excited to see me, although he certainly looked good. Very good. "Hey, buddy," he said, holding out his hand to me. I pushed his hand away and we hugged the way only male friends can. "Damn, you look good," I muttered. "Must be the good food." He laughed. Ash muttered, "I'll make tea." I picked up my bag and headed out into the hallway. "I need to change. I assume we're in the main guest room as usual." Ashley and Grant looked at each other strangely as I headed down the hallway to the guest room, which was empty. No clothes, no bags, nothing. This room hadn't been used in a very long time. I turned and looked back into the living room, where Ash and Grant were standing side by side, looking at me. Leaving my bag in the doorway, I walked back into the room and made my way to the bedroom, where all of Ashley's clothes were lying around. Her bags were open and empty, her shoes were scattered like she did at home, and the bed was disheveled, not at all like Ash's bed, unless it had been used recently. When I turned to walk out, Ashley stood looking at me. "Honey, let me explain. Let's put your bag in the guest room, and we can all sit down and talk." She looked nervous, anxious, and maybe even scared. I felt like I was going to faint. My heart raced, and it became suddenly difficult to breathe. I walked past her, pushing her aside, picking up my bag and heading into the living room with Ashley running after me. "Rob, please let me explain. Please, honey, stop. Rob, you have to let me talk." I kept walking, straight through the living room to my car. Ashley shouted, "Rob, please wait, don't freak out! Please stop, let's talk!" She shouted angrily. "Rob, listen to me, please. For God's sake, let me explain." Grant approached. "Buddy, let's not do anything rash." I jerked back and threw a punch, and he reeled backward, flailing his arms wildly, trying to regain his balance. Soon he was on the ground. Ashley looked first at me, then at him, and then bent over to make sure he was okay. By then, I had already thrown my bag in the back seat and climbed in, slamming the door angrily. Ashley ran up and grabbed me. "Rob, please don't go, not like this. Let's go back inside and talk." I hissed angrily. "And where am I going to sleep? More importantly, where are you going to sleep?" She wrinkled her nose painfully. "With you, silly. You're my husband." "Doesn't seem like it, does it?" I started the car, putting it in gear. "I think he's your husband now." Before pulling away, I growled, "Ashley, you'll be home in Wellington by Monday, but if you're not there, I promise that here and now our marriage will be dissolved and you can stay here." I left, showering them both with flying stones, and cursed quietly. They were living as husband and wife, sharing a bed, for goodness sake. Back at the airport, I spent a fortune to change my ticket. Back home, I realized the reality of the situation. My parting phrase was to offer to forgive her, but as I sat in the waiting room staring into the void, I wondered if she would forgive, could I? Sunday afternoon, I got a call. It was Ashley. "Rob, can we take a break and talk? Please give me a chance. Let me explain what happened." "Come on, explain to me. Tell me why you, my wife, are having fun with another man. Tell me why you live down there as husband and wife, and I live up here alone." "Honey, it's not like that." I interrupted her before she could continue. "So, you're not sleeping in the same bed?" There was a pregnant pause. "Yes, we share a bed, but it's not like you think." "Do you have sex?" Silence ensued. We listened to each other's breathing before she whispered hoarsely, "Yes, but—" I jumped up again. "So it's exactly as I thought it would be. You're living together." "Rob, let me explain. He was so lonely and so sad." You know how much he loved Saskia. I didn't come here to do this. It just happened. It started with a comforting kiss and just got out of hand. You can say that again. I made you an offer, and it stands. If you're home tomorrow, I'm willing to try to forgive you. I heard her sigh. Thanks, Rob. That's why I love you, but I can't. Not now. You've seen how positive he's become. Now that he's got some joy in his life, I can't just walk away. Hell, love. He doesn't have long to live, and then I'll come home and we can put this behind us. I think you misunderstood me. This is a one-time only offer, Ashley. I'm not waiting. Either you're here tomorrow, or I'm filing for divorce, period. The sobbing began. Rob, he has no one. We are all he has. Wrong. You're all he has. He's dead to me. That's not what you mean, she snapped wryly. He's your best friend. You won't abandon him when he needs you. Ashley, listen to me. He's already dead to me. If you're not home tomorrow, I will file for divorce. It's not a threat, it's a promise. Surely our marriage means more than that. Everything we've been through, and you're just going to throw away 25 years? No. Not me, Ashley. It's your credit, not mine. If it ends up that way, it's on your conscience. I could only hear her sobbing. What were you thinking, Ashley, God? What the hell were you thinking? She went into full hysterics. I don't know, Rob. I just wanted to make his last days happy. I just wanted to bring some joy to his last days. Come home and we'll try to forget about it. I promise I'll try to forgive. I'm sorry, Rob, but I can't do that. I hope you forgive me because I love you and I can't imagine my life without you. Well, you better get used to it, because if you're not here tomorrow, we're definitely finished. The next few days passed slowly. Work was impossible. I was a blank slate, but I struggled. Sitting at home would be even worse. At night, the house felt cold and my life felt empty. Ashley called a few times, and once she handed the phone to Grant, but as soon as I heard his voice, I immediately hung up. My daughter called to tell me how proud she was of her mom and how selfless she was to go down and care for him. God, she was comparing her to Mother Teresa or Florence freaking Nightingale. I couldn't bring myself to tell her the truth, but she didn't understand when I told her to shut up because I didn't want to listen to her. That wasn't the only thing she wanted to tell me, though. She had another surprise. She was getting engaged and wanted to know if we could make it to her party, which was coming up in a month. I, of course, agreed and offered to pay, which made her very happy. What didn't make her happy was when she asked what I thought about spending it at Grant's vineyard. Her damn mother must have already talked to her and made that suggestion, to which I snapped back. Sylvie, the answer is no. I'll find a better place. She looked puzzled. Why, Daddy? What could be better? It would be perfect. My anger exploded. Sylvie, if you keep him there, I won't be present and I won't pay. She looked surprised. But it was Mom's idea. She said it was so Uncle Grant could be there. Do what you like, Sylvie, but see him off there, and you'll do it without me. There was a pause while she tried to gather her thoughts. Finally, she said she would talk to her mom and get back to me. Sure enough, not an hour later, Ashley called. Sweet Sylvie just called and said something stupid about you not wanting to have her engagement party here. That's right, spat out I. She sighed. Honey, please don't be so difficult. It makes sense to have her party here. Grant is increasingly ill and won't be able to come. Please, I'm begging you, don't make it any more complicated than it has to be. Damn it, Ashley, I stand by my opinion. If she decides to listen to you, I won't be there, and what's more, I won't be paying. Sweet Grant has already offered to pay as his gift. It won't cost a dime if we spend it here. I'm sorry, but if you want me to attend, then it won't be here, and he won't pay for my daughter's engagement party. Tell him to back off. Thankfully, after numerous phone calls, my daughter realized something was going on and reluctantly agreed to hold the party elsewhere. I managed to find a venue at Hamner Springs through an old rugby buddy. Sylvie was as excited as I was when I broke the news to her. It was going to be a bit expensive, but I didn't care. Besides, it was the push I needed to start the divorce proceedings. 2 weeks later, the divorce papers were ready and filed with the court. Then we had to wait for Ashley's response. The papers had been sent by registered mail, and if she didn't mind, all she had to do was sign and return them, and the case would be filed. What the hell? That was all I heard when I picked up the phone. Hey, Ashley, it's good to hear your voice. Rob, what the hell is going on? It's simple, Ashley. I assume you're talking about the divorce. If you sign the papers and send them back, we can file the papers, and in 6 months it'll be finalized. Rob, no. Do I have to beg? Please don't do this. We can get through this. Once I get home, you'll realize it's all nonsense. For God's sake, Ashley, don't be ridiculous. I'm not going to wait for you to play happy home down there with a jerk. All I want is for you to sign the papers and we can both move on. No, I refuse. I don't need it. I won't sign. Then send them back with a signature saying you're contesting. Either way, by the end of the month, we'll legally part ways. Honey, take your time. Sylvie's engagement is in 6 weeks. Can't we wait at least until then? No, I won't wait. Everything has already been filed in court. Whether you contest it or not, we will legally separate. You can fight for a divorce. But when the judge finds out you've been living with another man for 3 months, I don't think you stand a chance. I'm not living with him. I'm caring for a dying friend. Caregiving doesn't require sharing a bed. Christ, you can be a nasty bastard whenever you want. I spent most of my free time helping plan Sylvia's engagement party, and everything was going well until she sent me the guest list, and Grant's name wasn't on it. This caused another unpleasant phone call when I informed her that he wasn't welcome. She burst into tears when I laid out my rules to her. This sparked another nasty call between Ashley and me. She accused me of being malicious, reminding me that Grant was Sylvie's godfather and had a right to attend the party. That was the last straw for me, and I growled, "No, as long as he's entertaining you, he has no right." The engagement party was a great success for everyone except Ashley. She came, but alone. We sat at opposite ends of the table for most of the evening. When the party atmosphere got serious and the orchestra started playing, Sylvie nudged me. "Dad, I don't know what's going on between you and Mom, but tonight you have to put that aside. I'm begging you, don't ruin my holiday." I put my arms around her and kissed her. "It's okay, sweetie. I'll be on my best behavior." "Good. Then go and dance with your mom. She looks like she has the weight of the world on her. She says poor old Uncle Grant is very ill." With a nudge from her, I went, feeling that I was being watched by 1,000 eyes. I took her hand and led her out onto the dance floor. As we glided serenely across, she pressed herself against me. "Oh my God, Rob. It feels so good to be in your arms. Thank you for asking me to dance." "So, how are you doing?" I asked. "Fine, I guess, but Grant—" I interrupted her. "I don't want to hear about him. I don't even want to hear his name." She tensed up at hearing my angry reply, but as we swam on, she clung to me and we continued on our way in silence. After a few songs, she sighed. "Rob, I want to talk to you. We need to talk to diffuse the situation." "Not tonight. Sylvie's already been rude to me. But if you're still here tomorrow, maybe we can find a private place." She agreed. God, it felt so good to hold her in his arms. "Where are you staying tonight?" I glanced at her quickly. "I'm staying at the Royal in town." "I can come over and spend the night with you," she whispered, sinking her teeth into my ear. "No thanks, Ashley. I don't sleep with other men's wives." "Rob, please don't start an argument. Wouldn't it be nice to spend the night together? I love you and want you." "What's the matter? Is Grant too sick to pick him up now?" She pushed me away. "You nasty bastard. I just wanted to spend time with you. But if you must know, Grant only has a few weeks left. Or tell me where he's going to be buried so I can come and piss on his grave." The cold, angry look she bestowed on me then could have frozen the flames of hell. As promised, we met at the pub the next day. When she walked in, I was already waiting for her with a glass of wine. I didn't get up when she approached the table. "What do you want to talk to Ashley about?" "Like I said last night, Grant will be leaving in a week or two, and I wanted to ask you to go visit him. He wants to talk to you." "Yes, and what bedroom will I be in?" "Rob, please come. It's very important. You're his best friend." No, Ashley, he gave up that right the night he got into your bed. He's not my friend anymore, and I'm not going out with him. You can tell him for me that I hope for his painful death, slow and agonizing, to make up for my pain over the last 6 months. She frowned, and a mask appeared on her face. Please, Rob, give him a chance. He needs to talk to you. I don't want to hear anything from him. Look, let's get on with the important stuff. I want to put the house on the market. We'll both need somewhere to live. Honey, that's part of what Grant wants to talk to you about. Please come and spend a few days at the vineyard and hear what he has to say. All I need is your consent to sell. If you think you can buy my share, then we can negotiate. But if you can't find the money, then we will have to sell. I've got an agent in, and he's ready to put it up for sale. Rob, we don't have to do this. At least give me a chance to make things right. Give me a chance to change your mind. We can't do that if we live apart. I'm sorry, Ashley, but I gave you a chance and you turned your back on it. You know I couldn't leave him like that, honey. He was smiling, enjoying his last days, and he's going to die soon. Just give us a chance. See if I can change your mind, or if you realize you can't forgive me, we can at least say we tried. But it seems you just gave up on me. Gritting my teeth, I muttered, Should I sell the house or do you want it? In desperation, she slammed her hands on the table, drawing stunned looks from across the room. Sell the damn thing. If you're willing to give it up just like that, then sell it. I nodded. Okay, I'll tell the agents we're going ahead and mail you the paperwork. As the tears began to drip, she wheezed. Do you still love me? Our marriage was so perfect, and I never doubted your love. Even during all of this, I always thought you still loved me. I love you, and I probably always will. But you chose to give that love to another man. I'm sorry, Ashley, but it's your fault. Why don't we try to fight for our marriage? If you really love me like you say you do, why don't we try? Her hand clenched tighter around mine. Please, Rob, think about the kids. What will they say? What will we even tell them? I don't know about you, but I'll tell them the truth. She brushed my hand away like a hot potato. No, Rob, please, not again. They'll hate me. I won't lie for you, Ashley. You made your bed. Now sleep in it. I was surprised at how quickly the house sold, but here another shock awaited me. The Ministry of Works was being privatized, and as part of the transition, we employees were offered voluntary redundancy. The payout was very tempting. After working at the ministry for so many years, I was getting over $500,000, and with the proceeds from the sale of the house, I could retire on a semi-retirement pension. Grant died the day after the sale. My son asked if we could go to the funeral together and was puzzled when I told him I wasn't going. Dad, what the hell is going on? Things have gotten weird since Mom left to take care of him. Okay, son, it's true. Your mother and Grant had an affair. She lived with him as husband and wife, and that's why I'm not going. Damn it, Dad. Are you sure? Yes, I caught them doing it. Well, thanks for at least being honest. What do you want me to do? Son, this argument is not yours. Do what your conscience tells you to do. My daughter begged me to leave, and I had a hard time telling her about the conversation with Clive, but I didn't expect her anger. Dad, you have to leave. Mom is falling apart. She's your wife. She became hysterical when I replied, Not for long. Ashley called with pleading and tears. Rob, you cruel, heartless bastard. Why did you tell the kids? Because they don't want to make it my fault. They were mad at me for not going to the funeral, and I explained why. Bloody hell. Now they hate me, Sylvie yelled at me. Clive called me some really hurtful names. I'm sorry, Ash, but you made your own bed and now lie in it. She sobbed softly. At least come to the funeral, please. You have to come. I can't go through this without you. My reply was short. Hard. Clive surprised me by not going either, and apparently he was having a shouting match with both his mother and sister. After selling the house, I had nowhere to live and started looking for a new house, but I needed a small seaside house on the Kapiti coast. While Ashley was at Grant's funeral, I signed the papers. I moved in the following week. Since it was a vacation home, and the fact that it was being sold for cash and was vacant, it meant I could move right in. I was asked to attend the reading of the will by a lawyer in town, but declined. But he said, Mr. Thomas, it is in your best interest to attend the reading. You have been bequeathed quite a large sum of money. I laughed out loud. I don't need his money. I'm not his pimp. Without waiting for the conversation to continue, I hung up. But thinking about it made me want to hurt him, and the only thing that came to my mind was to donate the money to the church. Grant was a strict atheist, and I knew he wouldn't like that. Quickly calling the lawyers back, I arranged for the money bequeathed to me to be donated in his name to a local church. The lawyer didn't care, but I knew someone who would agree. It wasn't long before Ashley called, angry and sputtering. Why, Rob? You know how he is about religion? He'd be pissed as hell if he found out why you just didn't return the money. We could have used it on the vineyard, or Glenn could have used it. Tough shit, I muttered and slammed the phone down. Clive came over to help me move into my new house and surprised me by bringing his girlfriend Alicia, a very pretty girl. We had a great weekend swimming and grilling kebabs. I was impressed with his choice of girlfriend. Unlike some of the bimbos he hung out with, she was very nice. She had brains, and we got along like a house on fire. There are two paths you can take in a situation like this: wallow in pity and become embittered and twisted, or go on with your life. I chose the latter, focusing on living well. Working out of my spare bedroom, I began to build my business as a consulting engineer. The job was fairly easy to find. I wasn't the only engineer to be made redundant, and this created a gap which I happily filled by paying more than double my previous salary. Within a month, I had more work than I could handle. Life began to get easier, and the oppressive anger faded away. A rather insistent knock on the front door caused me to tear myself away from the rugby I was watching on TV. When I opened the door, Ashley stood on the doorstep, radiant and looking more beautiful than I remembered. "Can I come in?" she asked. I swung the door open. I was drinking a beer while watching the game and eating sandwiches for lunch. "What do you want, Ashley?" "I want to talk, to see if we can somehow get past the anger and bitterness, Rob. I still love you, and I want to be in your life." Looking into her deep green eyes, all I saw was pain. "I don't think so, Ash. I already offered you a chance at redemption, but you refused." What was I supposed to do? He was dying. Our best friend in the whole world was dying. I thought that when you calmed down, you'd realize that it was all nothing, that we could get through this. Jesus, Rob, if you'd gone in there with me from the beginning like I asked you to, this wouldn't have happened. Yeah, and if you'd stayed with me like I asked, this wouldn't have happened either. She sighed. Rob was our friend. That just makes it worse. Why can't you understand that? For heaven's sake, how would you feel if I went off with your sister and had a 6-month affair? How would you feel about that? Honey, I know it was wrong. I'm not being defensive. I can see the pain in your eyes. I hurt you and I'm sorry. But we can get through this. We can go back to the way things were. Just give me a chance and I'll prove it to you. I'll do anything to make it up to you. As the tears rolled down her beautiful cheeks, I took a towel and wiped her eyes. Ash, I'm not sure I can do this. I'm just now starting to get my life in order. We just have to keep moving. No, please let me prove it. What are we losing? We can try again and see if we can make it work. If not, what do we have to lose? Leaning back on the back of the couch, I sighed. Ash, I can't do this. I really can't. She pounced on me like a tiger on a wounded gazelle. All my arguments vanished. See, sweetie, we can do it. I'll make you forget. With a shudder, I asked. Okay, and how do you envision that? Propping herself up on her elbow, she smiled. Love, that's what Grant wanted to talk to you about before he died. He wants you to take over the vineyard. God, you helped him build it and you love it there. Wouldn't that be perfect? I was stunned by her remark and how casually she mentioned his name in conversation. No, actually it would be far from perfect. Grant is dead and buried, and I like that. I told you I'd never set foot in this place again, and damn it, I meant it. To be honest, this is going to be our life. I've started to build up a really good clientele, and my consulting business is going really well. I'm willing to give it a try, but I'm not promising anything. She rolled over onto her back and stared up at the ceiling. Love, it was his dying wish for you to take over. It was supposed to be his gift to us. To hell with him and the ground he's buried in. The answer is no. I don't want his money or his house. I heard her wheeze, trying to hold back tears. You wouldn't even think about it, would you? No way, Ash. If you're serious about giving it a try, then I'm willing to give it a try. But here it would be a fresh start, a new home, new friends, and a new job. Morning came all too quickly. I savored her hot body pressed against me. When I opened my eyes, Ash was already awake, though she was just lying there staring at the ceiling. I looked up at her and asked, "So, what are we doing?" She nodded slowly. "Rob, I want this more than anything. I want us to be husband and wife again, and if that means living here, then that's what we're going to do." We sealed it with a kiss. I pulled the blankets off me. "Okay, let's go for a walk on the beach." It was a beautiful, bright, sunny morning, and we walked as one along the beach while the waves gently serenaded us. The weekend flew by like a blink of an eye. Ash flew back to Otago to pick up her things, and I went back to work. She returned on Wednesday with far less luggage than I expected. We started living. It wasn't easy, intense, and we lived on the edge, both of us choosing our words carefully. Ash, though living with me, was still immersed in the work of running the vineyard. Glenn wanted nothing to do with it. He was glad when his father left half of the vineyard to Ashley. It meant he could continue his education, leaving it in her hands. It sounds simple, but it pissed me off. I was tired of listening to her on the phone managing different aspects of the case. I could see that she was still entrenched, and it didn't take her long to start her soft sells. The opportunity to get me back there was presented to her by Sylvie, whose wedding was coming up, and Ashley was determined to spend it in the vineyard, and that was the cause of our first argument. When she brought it up, I flinched and quickly whispered, "No way, Ash, that's not going to happen." "Darling, don't rush into a decision. It would save us a fortune. We all love this place, especially Sylvie. She adores it." "She doesn't know. She hasn't been there for years, and it won't be the same without Saskia." "Rob, she used to come and live with Grant and me before he died. She adored him. They were close, and she loves the vineyard." "What?" roared I. "She stayed with you there? With Grant?" She nodded slowly, unable to bear my gaze. "So where did you sleep while she was there?" She reached out and grabbed my hand. "Han, she already knows I slept with Grant." I brushed her hand away. "God, could you possibly humiliate me anymore? For Christ's sake, Ash, with our daughter under the same roof." "Shit." "Rob, she already knew. There was no point in lying." "So all that bullshit when I told her. She already knew?" "Honey, she was just upset. She didn't want us to break up." "But she was happy to see her mom having fun with another guy, damn it. I'll tell you this. That damn wedding isn't going to be there, and I don't care how much you scream and yell, it's not going to happen." "Rob, you're overreacting. Grant is dead, and the place belongs to us. Well, us and Glenn. It's free. It's going to be fantastic." "Not bloody likely. I've already told you I'll never set foot in this place. I'm going to start looking for another place." "You'll break her heart if you do that." "Yeah, so be it. I don't care." "Think carefully, Rob. You could lose your daughter forever. Is it worth it?" "Very simply, the answer is yes. You can't change my mind." That put her on the offensive. As Sylvie tried to get me to change my mind with tears and guilt, Ash tried with entertainment. When that didn't work, she sided with Sylvie and went on the offensive, but I stood my ground and slowly, but surely Sylvie saw the arguments on my side. I think Clive might have pushed her too. No. We ended up having our wedding in Marlborough, and it was amazing. Even Ashley couldn't find a downside. She tried to pay for some of the expenses out of the money left over from Grant, but I angrily refused, and to her credit, Ash didn't push for it. After the wedding, everything went back to normal, only I had more work than ever. Ashley fussed, thinking I would come around to her way of thinking and move in with her, but with my business growing every day and the amount of work I was racking up, she saw her dream fade away. Eventually, she realized that it just wasn't going to happen. We tried, really tried, but our hearts were never in it. We both felt that even with the love we shared, it wouldn't work out. She wanted to live on the vineyard, and as far as I was concerned, that wasn't happening. One day I came home from work late at night and found her packing. When I interrupted her, she whispered, "I'm sorry, Rob, but this isn't working out, is it?" I shrugged. "No, I guess not." She flew off the next day, and I'd like to say I missed her, but I was actually pleased that the tension was gone. I could breathe and not worry about saying the wrong thing. I put her out of my mind, she called occasionally, but mostly she was gone. I focused on the house. I added another floor with a huge deck to maximize the ocean view. I took on an assistant in the office, a single mom from the next street over, and she had a 14-year-old son. Her husband had left her 6 years ago, and she had struggled to make her way in the world. She was a godsend in the office. Although I didn't need her full-time, I could see that she needed the money, so I made her a full-time assistant so she could have an income. Her son Alex spent some time at home when Roisin stayed late at work, and we developed a relationship. He wasn't dumb, but he was having trouble in school, so when I saw him doing his homework, I started helping him, tutoring him. Roisin offered to work overtime for free in exchange for tutoring, but I was just happy to help. Roisin was a very attractive woman, 15 years younger than I was, so I didn't see any chance of romance, thinking she'd never be interested in an old fart like me, especially since I'd become a bit of a workaholic. But I was wrong, and one night when she was working late and I was helping Alec with math, I asked if they wanted to stay for dinner. That dinner turned into a regular thing. Everyone took turns cooking. It wasn't an explosion, it was a gradual movement. One day, Alec went off to see his buddies, but Roisin stayed for dinner anyway, and dinner led to a few drinks. We sat together on a chaise lounge watching the ocean, and then moved on to something more. Roisin and I became couples. Clive, my son, was the first to meet her when he and Alicia, his girlfriend, came to visit for the Queen's birthday weekend. They didn't just come to visit, they came to announce their engagement. It was a fun weekend. The weather was great. Clive and Alicia got along great with Roisin, and they loved the house. The renovations won them over. As we were having a barbecue dinner, Alicia asked, "Is it okay if we have our wedding here?" I laughed. "Okay. That would be perfect." She hugged me. "Thanks. My parents don't have a lot of money, and I know they're worried about how they're going to pay for our wedding." "Nonsense, Alicia. I'd be honored to act as your host." Clive hugged me tightly. "Thanks, Dad. Would you mind if Mom was here?" Ashley wasn't impressed when Clive broke the news to her. She tried to talk him into holding the celebration at the vineyard, offering to pay for everything, but he steadfastly refused. Once the decision was made, Roisin and Alicia, who were already on friendly terms, began to work out the details. It came as no surprise to me when Ashley called me and asked who Roisin was. When I told her she was my girlfriend, she got very quiet and thoughtful and then complained. "Rob, she's cutting me out of everything. I want to help, but every time I talk to Clive, he says that Roisin is already on it. There's nothing for me to do." "Well then, just relax. Come and just enjoy it." "This is my son Rob and I want to help. If you just talk to them, let me help or pay for something." After promising to talk to Clive, I hung up the phone and felt her pain. The relationship between Clive and Ashley was strained to the breaking point, and I felt sorry for her. When I spoke to him, he promised to find something. Roisin was the hardest to deal with. She ruthlessly threw herself into the case and was a little taken aback when I asked her to include Ashley. She didn't resist, but I could sense she wasn't happy. The wedding weekend came and Ashley showed up with Sylvie and her husband. They arrived together and stayed at the same hotel. It seemed that the battle lines had already been drawn. Roisin, for her part, had spent hours getting ready for their arrival, and I must say, looked very nice. When I introduced them, Things were very tense and the claws were out. It was obvious that they were not going to be friends, let alone get along together. Sylvie, of course, was on her mother's side. The peacemakers were Clive and Alicia, their relationship with Roisin already strengthened. The first night Ashley arrived gave me a certain pleasure. I offered to let her stay, but she decided to get a hotel. While I gave her a tour, showing her the new addition and improvements, she walked into the master bedroom. I heard her sigh heavily, and I wasn't sure if it was because of the views of the coast or because Roisin had made sure the bed was in proper condition. Ashley couldn't get out of there fast enough. After the wedding, when Clive and Sylvie left, I arranged for Ashley to come over for dinner. We had a lot to talk about, had a quick dinner on the deck, and it was a perfect evening. The sun was setting over the horizon, there was no wind, just a gorgeous purple evening. After we ate, she gave me a cold look. "I think that's final. You're not coming to the vineyard, are you?" I laughed. "No, Ash, I never intended to. I'm sorry about the way things turned out." She nodded. "Not as sorry as I am." "Rob, I can't apologize for what happened. I know you won't believe me, but I still love you. I still can't imagine my life without you. Until this weekend, I was hoping that you would change your mind, that you would realize that we could still make it work. We had too much love to just throw it away. I was hoping we could fall in love with each other all over again and live out our days on the vineyard. Ash, I still love you. I will always have feelings for you. We had 25 years of shared memories and good times. They will always be with us. The bad news is that we tried, but it didn't work out." "Yeah, but Rob, we tried here, and this isn't home for me. This place isn't for us. Why don't we try at the vineyard? If you would just put aside your anger, come and try." "Rob, you know how much you loved it there and you could do it your way. Imagine, you could make it your own, and that's what Grant wanted." Everything was going well until the last moment. I laughed out loud. It was so comical. "You never learned, Ash. I don't care about Grant. He was dead to me long before he was put in the ground." "But why? Why can't we try?" "I've moved on. I gave you plenty of chances, Ash. I begged you to come home, but you chose him over me. I have a girlfriend now, and she means a lot to me. That weekend I went there. If you had come home, then we could have gotten over it. But not now." "Rob, it was just sex. Just 6 months out of our lives. And we could have been together for the rest of our lives. We could have grown old together." "It wasn't just Ashley. It was a lie. If I hadn't gone there that weekend, I never would have known. You would have kept me in the dark." "I didn't mean to hurt you, God. I thought about how to tell you. Grant begged me to come clean, but I didn't want to hurt you." "Well, you went down the wrong path. I'm sorry, Ashley, but it's over." "I have a letter here from Grant. Can I give it to you? He wanted you to read it." "Tear it up, Ashley." "I'll keep it, and hope that one day you can forgive us. When you're ready, I'll bring it to you." "Keep it. I don't need it." "I'm sorry for everything, Rob. I love you." "It's too late, Ash. Have a happy life." Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.